Hello, this is Mrs. Sorg. I'm going to be reading the chapter Coffee Tales, coming to you live from my favorite reading chair. As children, Teowold, Mayra, Unsa, and I knew better than to breach certain topics with our parents. High on the never bring up list were boyfriends, girlfriends, and all things sexual. My parents had married by arrangement and considered dating to be a uniquely American sinnet or wickedness that their children would never practice, at least not while we lived under their roof. One day, my father grabbed Teowold and me and sat us down. Do not have sex, you will get AIDS, you will die, you will have children that you cannot support. Wait until you are married. Conversation over. My sister Mayret, ha! One afternoon, the poor girl got whooped because she was stranded 3 miles away at her high school, and she accepted a ride home from one of my church friends. My dad was right there to see her get out of the car, and he almost went crazy when he saw her alone in the car with a guy. Gezret Sadi, who in your mother's name are you going to say taught you? If I ever see you alone in a car with a boy again, I will make you lost. Truth be told, the only way we could attend school dances was by appealing to our parents' deep respect for all things educational. We assured them that school dances were highly educational events, that all of our classmates attended them, and that we would be left behind if we did not go. Convinced that the dances were vital to our education, our parents let us go, sometimes. Only one subject was more taboo than sex. It was full of homesickness, displacement, and harsh separation. We never asked, sensing the layers of nightmare that asking might uncover. We always wondered, though, why had Papa left us in Adi? How did we find him again in Sudan? What problems did we encounter on the road? How had we survived? As we got older, my parents gave us answers. But as kids, we had only one way of piecing together our past, the coffee tales. When 3 or more of my people come together in a home, the woman of the house usually asks the other adults if they want buna, or coffee, and they usually say no. Not the least bit fooled, the woman asks again, and the guests usually say yes. The process of brewing buna is different from the American coffee making process. The woman pours the buna beans into a skillet and heats them over a stove until the powerful aroma of coffee invades the entire house. Sometimes the cooked beans give off too much smoke and the smoke detector goes off. After hearing the beans, the woman scoops them into a filter, runs water through, and serves the coffee in small, fragile white cups decorated with bright oriental designs. The cups are small enough to fit between your fingers, so small that one gulp could empty them. But no one gulps the coffee. Everyone sips slowly. The buna reaches in and uncuffs their tongues, allowing them to discuss memories they would otherwise leave untouched. Sometimes they recount stories of adjusting to life in America. A Fizum, who mistook his apartment refrigerator for a clothes dresser. He organized his trousers and shirts on the shelves, even placing his underwear and socks in the pull-out drawer on the bottom. Of Gibra, who upon arriving at the airport saw a dark-skinned uniformed airline worker and panicked, thinking that the worker belonged to the Dergu army. Sometimes the adults even tell stories of why they left their homeland, of how a rebel group hunted them, and how they fled across the Red Sea to Saudi Arabia and spent months in a Saudi prison, of how they somehow made it back to the Port Sudan and then to the States. The adults in my house would sip slowly and resurrect their past, even my mother, and whenever we could, we kids hid behind the stairs and listened. When we were in our country, we were doing well. Teowold, Mawi, Meret, they were all born there. We lived in our own home with 3 rooms and a long hall made of cement, not like many of the other homes. My husband had set up a small clinic and practiced there. We had a pharmacy where we sold pills, penicillin, and soap. Many village folk came to my husband with malaria. Many came with snake bites, but died before my husband could treat them. Village folk came to my husband on mules and took back to their villages to help the woman give birth. In those days, many women died as they tried to give birth, and their children died too. Sometimes they would bleed to death after they gave birth. Village folk did not understand. They would let the women bleed. But my husband would come, lift their legs up, not too much, just a little bit, tilt their heads back, and let them sleep in this position so they would not bleed to death. He would inject them with a painkiller too, and then would give them light food. My husband treated everyone. Someone came to him almost dead from stone fights, Some had hurt themselves as they watched their livestock. Some came wounded from the war. No one taught him how to treat all of their different sicknesses, but he had a great ability to figure out what to do. After a while, though, there came a time without peace, a time of leaving your home and fleeing, of leaving your children and fleeing, a time when a husband would flee, leaving his wife, a time when all fled, leaving their possessions. In that time, the Ethiopian dictator Mengistu Haile Mariam and his Dergu regime waged war against the Woan rebel group and the Jebba rebel group. Sometimes the Jebba and the Woan waged war against each other. When the Woan and Jebba were said to have taken a village, the Dergu would come and try to take it back. When the Dergu came, the people fled or hid in their homes and sent their children to the countryside, for they did not want to be caught between the Woan and the Jebba and the Dergu. Mengistu decree, Ye Matfat Zamaka, struck fear in our hearts. Kill all living creatures, spare none. Whenever the armies approached, my husband fled to the wilderness and hid there for several days. He feared that they would take him away and maybe kill him, maybe make him join the ranks as a doctor. One day it became too much. They approached and he fled to Sudan alone. He could not take us with him, for he was being watched closely by those who did not want him to flee. We did not know if we would see him again. It was only the will of God that kept us alive and brought us back together. All the villages mourned when he left. The whole territory did, because he'd never refused them and he had not feared to put himself in danger when treating them. They wept, saying, How will we find another like him, like Haliah, the son of Zendago? Some time passed, and my husband had travelers bring us messages. Come, 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 what are you waiting for? Come to Sudan. Leave the livestock, leave the house, leave everything. Just bring the children and come. But how could I leave my people and my home? Dergu kept coming in and out of our village, and we started to fear that Dergu and Woan would clash in our region. More and more of our people started to hide in the wilderness, and one time I sent Tiwold and Selamawi to their uncle Neguse in the village they call Gezegono. I kept Maret with me. Uncle Neguse came back several days later and told me that he would never again take them. He told me that his daughter and Selamari were sleeping near the doorway on some bedding that Uncle had set for them, and that while they slept, a snake came in from outside and started to slither into Selamari's body. We could do nothing, he said. We could have hit the snake, but then the snake might have killed Selamari. We could have warned Selamari, but Selamari might have moved in fear and caused the snake to bite him. So all we could do was watch and pray. The snake moved slowly from Selamari's body to my daughter's body, and we kept watching, praying, able to do nothing until finally the snake slithered past them. Once we'd killed the snake, I raised my voice and my hands to God and looked up and begged, Savior of the world, please save me from breaking the trust that is given me. Please spare me these children's lives and bring them back to their mother safely. So Uncle Nergase brought Tiwold and Selamari back to me. He told me, You gave your children to me so that they would be saved, but they almost died with me. From now on, do not hide the children away by themselves. Keep them with you, for who knows what safety lies these days. But the sickness they call Nifonyu seized Selamari, and he almost died. We did not know what to do. And then I said, Father of mine, I will go to Sudan. I won't say I'm tired, or that there are thorns, or that there is cold. I will go to Sudan. Just heal him. God is good, and Selamawi got better, and we fled to Sudan. We fled carrying sugar, medicine, a few clothes, and little money. We left our house and our family, and we sold our livestock. At first, we went on our feet. We plowed our 2 small donkeys with food, and we rented a camel, and we had guides to help us for part of the way. I walked much of the way, even with the animals. I still have scars on my shoulder from the chafing where I carried Meret and Mawi. We walked only at night because we feared that a plane would bomb us. From the sky, a pilot would not tell the difference between civilians and guerrilla fighters. Every night we would hear the hyenas shriek, Hingu! And we would fear. The younger hyenas would say, Chi, 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 and we would sit up in terror. The foxes would howl, wild boars would yell, ah, 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 and snakes would give noise, chi, 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 chi. The night air entered my children, and all 3 became sick with the intense killer cold they call tek-tatai. They would throw up everything they ate. Many children died from it. We arrived at a small town called Dik Dasham, a place where snakes wiped out many people and rabid dogs killed many others. I encountered a woman named Tadat who had a house of eating, and I told her, Hada, please, I have money. Just help my children. God bless her, she helped us. But the tektata persisted, and many children died all around us. I begged a doctor named Kadan to treat my children, and he gave them penicillin shots, and after 7 weeks we left Dikdashim. But the sickness persisted until it became very bad, and then we could not find water. We approached a village and begged them to let us into their homes, but they saw us and said, "They have the strong cold. Do not let them enter. We do not want our children to die." But then a strong storm came, and it almost swept us away, and they had pity on us and let us into their homes. After we left Sudan, we went from place to place and found many Hasheba that we knew in a land they call Awad, near Aliberia. And they became frightened when they saw us, saying, "Don't you know that your husband is in a region called Hafir, and that he's in very trouble because of you?" So they sent someone immediately to where my husband was. But there was an influential woman there who said, "No, they cannot stay with their tektata." But our friends argued with her, saying, "She's our sister. Either throw us away with her or hug us with her." And the woman said, "Let her be then." And we were able to stay. Then my husband came, and our 1 year separation was over. We were all very sick, maybe approaching death. But because of my husband, we became better. He injected the medicine into my children's thighs, into their skin, and they became better. After some time, my husband heard of the Swedish ministry clinic in Semsen, in a refugee camp called Sagada. He went to work there, and I helped at the food and nutrition place. And we lived there for 3 or so years in our adobe. And then we came to America, and you know the rest. Thanks for listening.